Picture your backyard on a quiet Sunday morning. Your coffee's warm, the air smells like fresh-cut grass, and maybe something's blooming in the corner. You've got a bird on the fence, maybe the kids are already out there, barefoot on the lawn. Everything looks just fine. But there's something else looking too. Right now, before you even finish that coffee, something is watching your property. It's assessing it, measuring distances, figuring out your routines. And honestly, it's not looking at your flowers, it's looking at the gaps. The overgrown corner by the wall, the standing water by the drain, that wood pile you've got stacked against the fence. Because from a different set of eyes, the kind that evolved over millions of years just to find a weakness, your backyard isn't a garden, it's a map. And someone just marked it. Most people think danger in the backyard just means a broken step or maybe a rusty nail. Something visible, something obvious. But here's the thing, that's not really how nature works. The most dangerous stuff in your outdoor space, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't put up warning signs. It just moves quietly along the edges of your awareness, drawn in by signals you've probably been broadcasting for months, maybe even years without realizing it. I don't know if you've ever thought about it this way, but every yard has a language, a pattern. And when that pattern has the wrong rhythms, the wrong shapes, or just feels a little too quiet, it sends out a specific kind of invitation. And it's definitely not for guests, to predators, to disease, to any animal that's reading your landscape like a chess player reads a board. They aren't looking at what's there, but at what's missing. There are 7 specific mistakes, 7 wide open doors. And honestly, the worst part is that most of them look completely harmless. Before we go any further, I need you to get something straight. This isn't about fear. It's not about turning your backyard into a fortress or ripping out everything you've worked so hard to build. It's just about awareness. Because the families who've dealt with a copperhead in the sandbox, or a raccoon in the dog run, or a kid who grabbed a plant that looked like a common weed, they all say the exact same thing afterward. I didn't know. That's the cruelest part of these mistakes. They don't hurt you loudly, and they don't give you any warning. They just build quietly, season after season, until one wrong step at the wrong moment changes everything. I've talked to doctors, pest specialists, and biologists. They see the same patterns everywhere, from the suburbs to the backwoods. 7 specific failures, 7 things that are probably sitting in your yard right now. Let's walk through them and see your yard through a predator's eyes. Every property has one. You might call it the side yard or just that back corner. It's that strip of space that never really gets used. Maybe it's shaded by a fence or a wall. It's always a little damp, and it just collects leaves. You probably got some old wood stacked there, or maybe a forgotten bag of mulch. To you, it's just dead space. But to a predator, it's a highway. Wildlife experts call these transit corridors. They're basically narrow, hidden pathways that let animals move around without ever being seen. And here's the thing, if your yard has that mix of thick ground cover, some shade, and low fencing, you've basically built them a private road. A road that leads right up to your house. Think about it, brown recluse spiders use these to crawl right to your garage door. Snakes like copperheads or cottonmouths, they travel them at dawn and dusk when the ground cools off. There's even been plenty of cases where coyotes moving into suburban neighborhoods were just following these exact hidden pathways, tight, shaded, and totally uninterrupted. And that woodpile you've got? It's not just a fire hazard, it's an apartment complex. All those logs create these perfect little nooks that have the exact temperature and humidity rodents and the venomous snakes that hunt them are looking for. Once the rodents move in, the hunters aren't far behind. You don't see what's using that corridor at 3 a.m. You only see the result. And sometimes that's just too late. Close your eyes for a second and just listen. Forget the birds. Listen lower, toward the ground. Hear that faint hum on a warm evening, maybe near the bird bath, or that tarp that's holding a little bit of rain, or that low spot by the garage that just won't drain. That isn't just background noise, that's a breeding ground. A tiny bit of water, I'm talking the size of a bottle cap, can produce up to 200 mosquito larvae in just 48 hours. But honestly, the mosquitoes aren't even the real story. They're just the start. See, the things that eat mosquitoes, bats, certain birds, frogs, toads, they follow the water. and then the things that eat them follow along too. That standing water is basically the first domino in a chain that ends with apex predators right on your lawn. In a lot of suburban wildlife run-ins, standing water within 15 feet of the house is the one thing that keeps coming up. It concentrates life, and where life is concentrated, hunters show up. Plus, there's something else people rarely talk about: the bacteria. If you've got puddles that never dry up, especially near older soil, you can get things like leptospira hanging out in the mud. It's that stuff that causes leptospirosis. That's what your dog is drinking or your kid is walking through barefoot. It looks peaceful. It really isn't. You can't see it. You can't see it. You can't smell it. But right now, something is reading your yard like it's a book. Every outdoor space has this invisible scent map. It's basically a chemical landscape shaped by what you're growing, what you're storing, what you're throwing away, and what you're eating. Think about it. Fruit trees with rotting stuff on the ground. Compost bins that aren't sealed right. Bird feeders full of seed. Leaving the dog's bowl out at night. Each one of those is a signal. And that scent travels on the wind way further than you'd ever guess. A black bear's sense of smell is like 7 times stronger than a bloodhound's. A raccoon can smell fermentation through a closed plastic container. Biologists tracking how animals move through neighborhoods found something wild. In areas where people have a bunch of these scent sources, the predator routes actually converge on those properties. It's not just one animal you're attracting. You're building this layered food chain where every new arrival draws something bigger and more dangerous right behind it. And that scent map? It doesn't reset when you head inside for the night. It just broadcasts all night. Every night, something is always listening. Think about the last time you actually walked your entire property line. I don't mean just checking on your plants or grabbing something you left out. I mean really walking it slowly, keeping low to the ground and looking at the spaces where something else could easily hide. Most of us never actually do this. And because we don't, our yards develop what landscape security experts call blind spot architecture. It's basically just a pattern of plants, structures, and junk that creates these little pockets of space that you literally cannot see from your own windows or doors. Think about it. Thick shrubs pushed right up against the foundation, lattice under the deck with no way to peek inside, trellises that create these perfect enclosed little cavities along the fence. To us, they're just landscaping. But to a wild animal, each one of these is a microhabitat. It's a safe zone where they can den, nest, or just chill out without you ever knowing they're there. There was this family in suburban Georgia. They lived with a 6-foot eastern diamondback rattlesnake living under their back deck for 3 years. 3 years. And they had no clue. Why? Because they had a dense shrub line blocking the view, a lattice with a gap just big enough, and damp soil underneath. That's 10 feet from their back door. Honestly, you don't know what's sitting in your own blind spots. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Here's the thing about darkness. It isn't neutral. A backyard that isn't lit up strategically isn't just inconvenient. It's a massive advantage for anything that prefers the dark. Think about it. Nocturnal animals like opossums, raccoons, skunks, foxes, and in a lot of places, coyotes, they're doing their thing when we're sound asleep. They're most active between midnight and 4 a.m. If your yard is pitch black, you've got no early warning, no way to scare them off, no way to even know what's out there. But here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They use static lighting. Just leaving the porch light on all night. People think that deters predators, but it actually does the opposite. That light attracts bugs, which draws in small animals, which then brings in the things that hunt those small animals. You've basically just set the dinner table for them. Motion-activated lighting? That changes the whole dynamic. It breaks the rhythm. It tells whatever's out there, hey, this space is being watched. Wildlife experts have actually found that unpredictable light is way more effective than just having a light on all the time. Darkness doesn't just hide what's out there. It tells everything in the woods that nobody is paying attention. That's an open invitation. So here we are. 5 mistakes, 5 open doors. You might be sitting there thinking, well, maybe 1 or 2 of these sound like my yard. Maybe none. Maybe I've just been lucky. But here's the truth about luck. When it comes to predator behavior in nature, it isn't random. It follows rules. pretty precise, repeatable rules. And those rules tell us that if your yard has a bunch of these failures at the same time, you don't have a few small problems. You have one big one. Because these mistakes don't sit in isolation, they compound. That dark corridor leads right to the blind spot. The standing water feeds the scent map. The light failure covers the transit route at the exact hour when everything is moving around. They're a system, and if you've been watching this, nodding along and recognizing pieces of your own home in each section, then what I'm about to tell you is the most important part of this whole video. The most dangerous mistake isn't any single one of the 5 we talked about. It's the belief that your yard is yours. We think that because we built it, we mowed it, and we paid the taxes on it, that it follows our schedule and our rules. It doesn't. Your yard is just one small part of an ecosystem that's been running for thousands of years. The animals and the insects and the opportunistic wildlife that live around you, they don't see your fences, they don't see boundaries, they see resources, they see food, water, shelter, and safety. Every single mistake we've walked through the corridors, the water, the scent maps, the blind spots, the darkness is your yard speaking their language, fluently. The predator lurking near your house doesn't see a problem. It sees a solution. Remember the quiet Sunday morning at the start of this? The coffee, the fresh-cut grass, that bird sitting on the fence, that bird wasn't just passing through. It was reading your yard exactly the same way everything else does, looking for the patterns, checking the gaps, and deciding if it's safe to stay. Everything alive is doing this all the time. The question was never whether your yard was being watched. The question is what it's been saying to the world around it. Now that you know the language, you can start changing the conversation. Walk your yard today. Look at it through different eyes. You might be surprised by what you've been saying. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Which one of these mistakes did you recognize in your own yard? Was it the dark corridor? The standing water? Or those blind spots you've never actually checked? Drop it in the comments below. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is the one you've walked past 100 times and never even questioned.